Greetings, everyone, and welcome to the August listening session for the California Truth and Healing Council. Today is the Eastern California listening session, with Northern on Tuesday, Central on Wednesday, Southern on Thursday, and the regular business meeting at the Council on Friday at 1 p.m. My name is Christina Snyder, and I'm a member of the Dry Creek Rancheria Band of Pomo Indians and the Tribal Advisor for Governor Gavin Newsom. Before we get started, I'd like to acknowledge the land I'm joining you from is the ancestral homelands of the Patwin peoples. I'm now going to briefly walk through some of the logistics and preliminary business for today's listening session. First, we are recording this meeting, and it's available for public participation via Zoom and dial-in. For those interested in following the Council, ongoing updates, including listening session recordings and the listening session summary documents, are available at California Truth and Healing Council Updates blog at catruthandhealing.com. You can also get updates for events by following the Governor's Office of the Tribal Advisor on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. Additional details, including meeting dates, agendas, and background information, are available at tribalaffairs.ca.gov/CTHC. And if you go to the meeting site, we've now also linked to the listening session link so that you can go there easily as well from the meeting's landing page. If you've not already done so, we'd appreciate if you could update your name to let us know who you are. And we're going to start with brief introductions of those of you who have joined us. And then, as always, we'll dive into a quick overview to get everyone up to speed on the recent updates of the Council, and then go into the listening session portion of today's convening. If you'd like to speak at any point, you can raise your hand and I'll call on you. If you're using the Zoom app, you should be able to raise your hand using the app controls, but you can also use Alt-Y in Windows or Option-Y on Mac to raise or lower your hand. If you've dialed in, you should be able to raise your hand by pressing *9. You may also email written comments to info@catruthandhealing.com at your convenience. And you can always put anything in the chat that you'd like to chat about. Now, before we begin, I'd like to remind participants that all of our Council members, Council staff, and many of you are members of the victim population in need of collective healing. So I ask that you engage with the Council, our office, and each other with respect and with your whole heart in a healing mindset. Many of us are doing work and we're navigating systems that were not built for us to make change that was never contemplated. This in itself takes an enormous amount of patience and emotional integrity, and we're all doing our best to make strides in these spaces. So thank you again for joining us, and now feel free to introduce yourselves to the group. And I think we can start with Council Member Burris.
Good afternoon, everybody. Can you hear me? Okay, I always want to make sure. I'm Anthony Burris, and I am a member of Ione Band of Miwok Indians, and I'm here representing the Eastern region. I'm a graduate student, a PhD candidate at UC Davis in Native American Studies, and I'm working on ancestor repatriation under NAGPRA and CalNAGPRA, and some different history projects for the local Miwok tribes. And actually, I just started working with the UC Davis history project on K through 12 curriculum. And I know that's been a really big concern with a lot of the folks who've been hearing from in the listening session. So once we have those emails out there, if you want to send me any kind of recommendations, I'm basically developing sources for them and critiquing some of their ideas. So if people have information they want to send me, that's great too. We're looking specifically at like the Davis and Sacramento areas, so Potwin, Miwok, Nisenan folks, but also general California history as well. So I just thought I'd throw that out there really quick. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Council Member. And then Loretta, would you like to introduce yourself to the group?
Sure. Hi, everybody. My name is Loretta Miranda. I am a descendant of the Morongo Band of Mission Indians. I am Serrano and Cupeño, currently joining you from ancestral homelands of the Kuya people, and I am serving as Chief Deputy Tribal Advisor and Special Counsel for the Governor's Office, and happy to have you all here.
And then we've also got Michael Park on for our office, who has put some helpful links into the chat. And so if you have any technical issues or you'd like to contact our office, Michael can also assist you, so you can contact him directly. So if anyone else would like to introduce themselves at this time, feel free to unmute your line. You can go on cam or stay off cam, and we would love to hear from you.
Don't be shy, Robert Levi.
Okay, let me turn my camera on. Okay, I am Robert Levi. I'm a member of the Torres Martinez Desert Kuya Indians. I'm following in terms of the education branch of the Truth and Healing Council. I'm also from the central region, but I like to eavesdrop on each region. And I'm glad that Councilmember Burris is developing curriculum because that's what we need. Hopefully you'll have input from American Indian, California Indian teachers within the area to implement what is needed behind our stories. And again, like I said before, you can't tell California history without telling California Indian history. So again, it's a pleasure, Christina, Loretta, again, to be with you for the next following 4 days. But I'll fill the people in if they have any questions, but I will definitely get in contact with Councilmember Burris about developing curriculum. Thank you, guys.
Great, good to see you again. And if anyone else would like to introduce themselves to the group and anything that they're thinking about, please feel free to introduce yourselves. We'll give it another awkward minute, and then if folks are wanting to just kind of hear updates, we can go into those as well. Great, and you can also put some in the chat if anyone would like to chat, as Brandy did. Great, and one thing that I wanted to mention at the top of this is if any of you are hearing any needs specific to folks that are experiencing the wildfires throughout the state, drought conditions, anything else that is straining our communities right now. There are a few grant opportunities, and there's also philanthropic dollars going towards supporting Native populations in those places. So if there are folks that are interested in that, please feel free to reach out to Michael, and we will connect you with the people who are doing that. So again, thank you all for joining us today. We know your time is valuable, and we know right now it's kind of a very stressful time for a lot of communities and a lot of people. So again, very much appreciate your being together with us in this space. Today, we're going to go through some updates. We're then going to open up for some listening. And so if folks came here with something that they'd like to specifically talk about, we'd love to hear that. And then we're going to go through our respectful meeting principles, which we would like to get in place before we kind of get into the meat of this work, given that we know that everybody brings something to the table, and we want to make sure that in the process of seeking that self-help reflection, building each other up, that we're not, engaging in lateral violence or re-traumatizing folks that are here for healing as well. So we're going to go through some of those principles, and if folks have feedback on how we can make them better, any Native principles that we could be incorporating into this space, or any practices that folks would be interested in incorporating into those principles, we'd love to hear those so that we can refine them and present them to the council for adoption before we get into the actual meat of this work. So at this time, I'm going to go through our update presentation. Okay. And if folks have, and Loretta, can I just do a screen check? Are you seeing the right?
Yep, we see the title of it.
Okay, so you're not seeing the presentation thing?
No, it's in PowerPoint mode or slide mode.
Perfect. If folks have feedback along the way or questions along the way, this is meant to be kind of a conversation. So if you'd like to jump in, ask any questions, get any clarification, feel free to unmute your line and just kind of jump in, or feel free to enter anything into the chat, and we will try to answer as we go. So again, I don't know if Loretta was on last time, but the new photos for our slideshow are from Loretta herself, and they're from tribal lands throughout the state. So credit to Loretta. We love these photos, and we're excited to be able to highlight tribal lands throughout California.
Thank you.
So,
I feel like I'm a fancy photographer, but thank you.
I mean, you are. And we now have these native photos by a native person, so we're very excited to highlight that. So for today, what we're going to do is go through again, an overview for folks who are just joining us. It looks like we've got a lot of folks who've been joining us along the way, but want to make sure if anybody drops in that they're getting up to speed as well. We'll then go through the agenda for Friday. We'll go through any updates, and then we'll open up to listening and discussion. And then we'll go through the document overview and get feedback on where we're at with the respectful meeting document. So again, the California Truth and Healing Council is a council made up of representatives from California Native American tribes, and is charged with bearing witness to, recording, examining existing documentation of, and receiving California Native American narratives to clarify the historical relationship between the state and California Native Americans in the spirit of truth and healing. It will submit a final written report of findings to the governor's office by 2025, and the report should reflect a holistic understanding of the historical relationship between California Native Americans and the state. And so the first thing is that it should be an inclusive understanding of our joint history here. And it should also, it can also make recommendations aimed at reparation and restoration, and consider how to prevent similar depredations or policies in the future. The council is organized under a charter, and that's available on the website as well. And it's made up of voting members and non-voting members. There are 12 voting members from each of the 4 regions, with 1 seat for non-federally recognized tribal designee in each region. The council welcomes and encourages all available methods for public participation, and participants are encouraged to attend and observe all meetings of the council, submit written comments to the council, make oral statements and testimony to the council, participate in interactive dialogues, panel discussions, and informal meetings, organize and host affiliate events on issues relevant to the work of the council, and join the work of the subcommittees. Affiliate events, for those of you that are familiar with some of the UN structures, are events that are similar to the work of the council, but not necessarily under the umbrella or the purview of the council. So, for example, when there is a human rights forum, sometimes universities will have events that will discuss particular, United States or Indigenous issues on human rights, or they'll look at the lens of, specific to women in the United States through the lens of human rights. And so, as this council gets moving into its regular structure, where there are quarterly meetings, we welcome and we'd love for folks to submit events that they'd like for us to list in conjunction with the council's work. So if there is, a desire to examine something under the purview of the federal government, or under the church, or under the Spanish government, or other folks who had influence here, Russian influence, similar things that are outside the scope of state action and negative action towards Native people. We would love to have all of those kind of be in an umbrella where everybody can kind of think about those things collectively alongside the work of the council. And then join in the work of the subcommittees. And this will be important as we move forward to, just given that a lot of the work is going to transition into the subcommittee space, we anticipate over the next several months. And I'm gonna just take a look at the chat. Oh, great. Okay, so as folks are wanting to introduce themselves, please continue to do so in the chat. So the council also has, it's basically structured around tribal consultation. And so if you're a California Native American tribe, we're seeking to begin initial consultation meetings, and we'll be sending a formal request for consultation in the following weeks because there's still some outstanding structural questions for this council that we'd like to get in place before the end of the year. And so we will be having an open consultation period over the next several months. And at this time, we are moving away from in-person, though we can consider that on a case-by-case basis. The increase of the Delta variant and COVID transmissibility throughout the state is becoming a bit of an issue, and we're trying to discourage any unnecessary travel throughout the state. So what we'd like to do, though, is have, our consultation requests will go out. We're happy to meet with your tribe to discuss some of the structural things that we still need to discuss, and also how your tribe would like to engage, whether your tribe has any needs that we could potentially incorporate into the work of the funding subcommittee, and just get, one-on-one thoughts from each tribe. And so if your tribe is ready, you can reach out to info.tribalaffairs@gov.ca.gov. And apologies, I didn't change the in-person, so that'll be different for tomorrow. And we can schedule a time to chat, but also we will be sending out a request for consultation. So if you are more comfortable, or your tribe is more comfortable just submitting written comments, we are happy to accept those as well, and we'll have a pretty lengthy open period for consultation. We're flexible about the method and mode of meetings, and meetings will be recorded and transcribed. These are the consultation meetings that we contemplate throughout the work of the council. And so depending on how things go with the public health pandemic, the crisis, we had envisioned there being quite a bit of in-person components to this work. And so, I think we'll have to be flexible about that, but understanding that a lot of these materials are, in print, some are in archives with tribes. I think we just need to think about how we want to do this moving forward, and hopefully things alleviate at some point. But if tribes have preferred methods of sharing that are COVID friendly, we're happy to start incorporating that as well. And then outside of tribal consultation, the council and tribal advisor are available to meet with Native American individuals, organizations, and groups at their request. Aligned with the request for consultation, we'll have the listening sessions moving forward, and I'll talk about this a little bit later. But the listening sessions will be structured around those calls for consultation, and also around the needs of the subcommittees, and also any updates from them. So the rest of the meetings for this year, the council is currently meeting on a monthly basis, and it's virtually until further guidance is issued from the state for the remainder of 2021, or until the council decides otherwise, to set up the foundations for the council's work. So the next meeting is this Friday from 1 to 4 p.m. And then after that is September 17th, October 22nd, and November 19th. I will note that the October and November meetings are subject to change based on changing COVID-19 conditions and expiring waivers for open meeting requirements. So the current waivers go through the end of September, and it's likely that there could be a gap between those executive order waivers and any legislative fix that would allow for virtual meetings that would go into effect likely in January. And so it may be that the council, and we will probably recommend that the council hold off on the October and November meetings while we do more structural work and subcommittee work that does not require a quorum or does not require open meeting compliance, which would require an in-person meeting. So we'll keep you all posted on that, but that's kind of what we're contemplating at this point, especially given the substantial amount of policies, procedures, and work that we'd like to do in the next couple of months to get everything ready for next year and for the bigger launch. So for Friday, we've got the welcome, roll call, and traditional opening. And again, if there are members of the public who'd like to do a traditional opening, we'd like to welcome you to do that. So please, if you'd like to contact Michael in the chat, you are completely welcome to do that. We'd just like to get a heads up so we can get you presenter credentials. And then we'll go through the minutes for May and June and have those get approved or amended and approved. And then we'll go through council member we'll go through council member updates. And those will be anything that council members have done over the past month that they'd like to share with the group. We'll then have, or any reflections from these listening sessions. We'll then have public and community engagement and input, and that'll be kind of an overview of what we talked about in these listening sessions. And then we'll do, oh, that should not be there. Oh, actually, maybe it is. I need to take a look at my agenda. I think we'll do a budget update, but it's substantially the same. And then we'll go into subcommittees. For this Friday, I'm going to recommend to council members that they create these subcommittees without further discussion, just so that we can get that done. I know that there's some folks on here who have been waiting for the subcommittees to get created. So we'll have those get created. And then any other subcommittees that the council wants to contemplate, which we might discuss later today, given the timeline that we're looking at. And then any updates from the subcommittees, which there should be none because they did not meet this month, but there may be a couple of things that staff wants to update them on. And then we'll go through these drafts, and that's the public engagements and public relations guidelines and process draft review, council member code of ethics draft review, and then the respectful engagement in meetings and listening sessions draft review. And that's the document we're going to go through today. And then we'll talk about next meeting dates and topics, and then open up for public comment, which again, will start promptly at 3 on Friday and go until 4 or until the end of public comment, whichever is first. So I wanted to lay out a timeline of what we're looking at for the rest of the year. And so over the next several months, staff will work with the council and subcommittees to finalize state and third-party contracts. And so we'll do the consultation I mentioned, which will go out to all of the tribes on the NHC contact list. We'll then be finalizing contracts to help organize this work on the state side, but then also with our philanthropic partner, we'll be thinking about what other contracts need to get in place through that relationship. And then also with our academic partnership subcommittee, figuring out whether there's third-party academic partners that we want to, you know, put some philanthropic dollars toward to do some of the work as well. And just make sure that we've got everything in place for emotional supports and wellness. And then we'll also be pulling together training and tools for the council and the public to participate in the process. And so we anticipate that that is going to be something like a webinar or a collective meeting where likely more webinar training status so that the council does not violate open meeting laws, but so that there's some trauma-informed training to be able to work through the meat of this process. And then some strategic planning and developing of a strategic planning document to frame the work of the council, given the feedback in the consultation process. And then also draft additional policies and procedures as needed to move forward, build out subcommittee work and work product, and then develop communications and web-based materials so that we're ready for a bigger launch in 2022. In 2022, we anticipate that subject to COVID-19 constraints, the council will begin its regularly quarterly meetings. And again, those are slated for March, June, September, and December. But if there is legislation that goes into effect, we may have also another business meeting in January to be able to virtual business meeting to be able to solidify all of the recommendations of the subcommittees, all of the policies that are developed, and all of the planning documents. Let's see. Are others having issues with audio? Is my connection? Okay, good. Okay, so for the subcommittees, as I mentioned, subcommittees didn't meet this month due to scheduling constraints. And so the Academic Partnership Subcommittee is developing a mission and vision statement, and will meet with the State Library and Archives to assist in scoping the work of the council. The State Library has put together all of their known resources within a pretty lengthy document, and we'll be sharing that with the subcommittee to think through that. And then both of the library and the archives will be meeting with the council virtually. The Youth Council subcommittee has met and seeks additional community engagement, and is planning to host a youth convening kickoff, which is currently in development. At this point, it's looking like it's going to be virtual, but we do want to create some momentum for youth to engage with this group. And then the Funding Partnership Subcommittee has been staffed, and again, due to scheduling constraints, has not yet met, but will meet with the council's funding partner, and then our internal governor's office public-private partnerships advisor to develop a process for engagement with our partner, and then also advise on the development of community funding priorities and current council needs. And we are hoping that a sort of community fund will be stood up, final, and ready to go by the end of the year, so that everybody has plenty of time to apply for funding to engage in the work of the council. And then subcommittees, as I mentioned, these are the other subcommittees currently under consideration that we're going to recommend that the council just stand up so that they can start doing substantive work. And so those are status and identity, elders, education, and then that way folks can start getting into those conversations about you know, what are the real constraints, what are the real issues, what are the perspectives that need to be taken into account in this work. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing for a bit and see if anyone has any thoughts or anything that they'd like to chat with the group about, or any questions at this time. I'll give it just a couple minutes in case folks have anything that comes to mind that they'd like to weigh in on. Ken, are you trying to speak? Okay. One other thing I wanted to mention too is that our office is also in the process of, we're going to be speaking with the feds to see how we can, or what they're planning on doing with their boarding school initiative what they're planning on doing with any emotional wellness and support, and just kind of see how we can partner with them. So we will keep the public and the community posted on that as well. Okay, then I'm going to
I better say something now since I cut you off mid-sentence. Just updates on the two bills, the Ramos Bill 1554 and now it's ACA 6. I think that's the constitutional amendment with update about California Indian history. They're starting to finalize in talks between CTA, the state, and James Ramos's office. So we're still in that mediation, trying to get the language correct in terms of making it easier to pass. And again, back to, since Councilman Burris brought this up, and hopefully the other council members will do so also, with any kind of educational input into the public schools, if you could run it by CTA, you know, I was either myself, but I'm retired, so I'm not really official. My wife is Mary Levi. If they get the backing of the California Teachers Association, which is like the second largest union in the state, that would help them also get it within the public schools, within the local school districts. What else was there? Education, we're looking into creating more curriculum for the ethnic studies. So again, just a reminder that ethnic studies is going to be a graduation requirement in 2014. And you know, my big push is we still have no California American Indian teachers to teach that section of ethnic studies. So again, we're going to be kind of drowned out in terms of non-Indians trying to teach Indian culture and Indian traditions. So if you all keep that in mind, and again, get the youngins interested in becoming teachers. So that's the update so far. And if I remember anything else, I'll let you guys know. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Just thought I'd throw it out there really quick. You might be happy to know that I'm actually going to teach 2 of the Intro to NAS courses at CSUS this fall. I want to say that I don't know if they all got funded or there was enough enrollment, but they, I think, had about 15 NAS1 courses going at CSUS for this fall because of that bill that got passed. So they, the chair, Annette Reed over there, reached out to a lot of people to get Native teachers to teach that. And I got to see a lot of the teachers on one of the email, and it looks like they're mostly Native that are going to be teaching that class over there at CSUS. So I can't speak for other schools, though. I mean, I'm not saying what you're asking isn't important. I'm sure there are a lack of teachers. But just thought I'd let you know that that's what's happening over at CSUS this fall.
Yeah, I know at
Ethnic Studies 53 is what they call it over there. Sorry.
Yeah, and down here at CSUN and Cal State San Bernardino, they're trying to get a push for more Indian students to go, especially Cal State San Bernardino. I'm involved in trying to get Indian students from around the area to go there. But again, it's not so much as teaching an NAS course, it's about getting in the teacher prep program and having that part of their curriculum to understand, you know, this is an example of, like, I've been working on tribal citizenship curriculum for ethnic studies and taking them through the ideas of, you know, this is what it looks like. This is what dual citizenship is. This is what PL 280 is. You know, this is where we look to the federal constitution. So again, and I'm geared toward high school, and my wife is geared toward elementary school. But again, I'm trying to push CSUN and Cal State San Bernardino into getting teachers to teach or get a component in there for their teacher prep program, since ethnic studies is going to be a graduation requirement now. So I would imagine each district, I mean, in the perfect world, would at least have one California Indian, American Indian teacher on campus to teach that component within that system. And you know, like I said before, and Christine and Loretta heard me, it's like, hey, it's probably not really going to happen within a decade, but you know, we can only hope. And again, that's what I'm trying to do, working through Cal State San Bernardino and Northridge. And now even I'm trying to get into UCR too, to get those guys in the teacher prep program. And Gerald Clark there at UCR is teaching ethnic studies. So I'm trying to push him into, you know, getting into the teacher prep program, see if some way we can get him into and teaching a little bit about California. He's Korea like I am, into California Indian history. You know, same thing up there, you know, something in Miwok or Marty Meaden at Paiute is ex-CTA, and he's the education coordinator there at Paiute. And so we're trying to get him to get more teachers or more people involved into the teacher prep program up in that area. So, you know, we're working, we're trying to get it done, but you know, it's going to be kind of difficult, but we'll trudge on, whatever. So again, thank you for getting involved in developing curriculum. And again, just a really quick mention that Washington State has that since time immemorial curriculum that is really, really, really good. Let me have it. I have it on my iPad. Since time immemorial, tribal sovereignty in Washington State, and that's the model that we're following through CTA in the American Indian Alaska Native Caucus. So developing off of that is really good. Montana has a good one. Wisconsin is another place that one of the Dakotas has another good curriculum program for Native American study history in their curriculum. So just keep on developing it, and you know, we'll get it through the public schools. So thank you, guys.
I would also say that if you are looking for more resources as you do as work council member, I know Chris Hohag down at Bishop Paiute has a background in curriculum development as well, and might be worth reaching out to. Ken has raised his hand.
Yes, well, I was really emphasizing on the destruction that was done at these boarding schools. Several of our tribal members were taken away. They came back with issues, alcoholism, drugism, you know, all these isms. It's great to talk about educational, you know, I have no, you know, that's the best thing in the world. But when my people and a lot of the Central Valley Indians cannot even get out of public high school, you know, back in the good old days, they had training schools or trade schools. Not all of us are created for higher education. You know, I get back to the emphasis is that we need to bring it back to the tribe. I mean, I don't know if both of these tribal members are talking from fairly recognized tribes. We don't have that. We don't even have a land base. We don't even get recognized by any programs. For us, the state of California took away our tribal sovereignty. So we need to look at creating, and here I go again, talking about state recognition. We need to be able to administer our own funding, just like, you know, these school, you know, recognized tribes too. I have nothing against recognized tribes. I have 6 of them in my area, but we're the tribe and people that are left out. We get the minimum. You know, if you're not a tribal member, you might as well forget it for a fairly recognized tribe. And everything else is handouts that we get. That's it. So I look at my mom's history. You know, she told me about this 20, 30 years ago, about the boarding schools. You know, I look at the school records. There's no, they've been cleansed, they've been cleaned up. Now I'm finding out they have records up there at the boarding school that are not put in the archives, but put in other federal archives. So us as California Indians, we don't have that luxury to request it. We have to go in there, show death certificates, birth certificates to prove who we are. I mean, if there was a stamp on us from the state of California showing that we are members of a tribe, because we have a constitution, bylaws, we have, you know, all our information comes back from way back 1850. So we are, you know, historically signatures of treaties. So, you know, I love higher education. I wish I could have been there and done that, but there was no financial. You know, I look at some of the recognized tribe members, they have the reservation sponsored them. They were good, you know, but we living in our village till the 1980s, you know, 1980s, 1970s, we didn't have that stamp on us. And we were told to go financial aid. And basically, if you're a California Indian, you have to be dirt poor to get anything, be a TANF or Indian House Services. So it's really hard for me to sit back and everybody's talking about higher education when my people are barely getting out of 8th grade. So that's where I'm at. There needs to be some sort of form to, I guess, really tribal recognition at the state level. Yeah, it goes back to that. We could administer our own funding. Thank you.
Thank you, Ken. And then we had a comment from Brandy about the California Tribal College. They are going strong, it seems like, with classes starting today. So I think they're still doing okay. And I thought that they had decent enrollment for this quarter, but if anyone else has any updates, feel free to jump in. Okay, any other comments, thoughts, feedback for the group?
Hello, can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Hi, this is Kathy Corey Chichansi, and I would like to kind of emphasize what Ken is saying in regard to California Indians that really have no verification process in terms of for things that can help our people. And I think that, you know, along with the disenrollment situation, something does need to be done in order to verify as a larger group of California Indians, people that are not federally recognized or disenrolled within the communities, because this is a huge issue. I've been watching with a lot of interest with the legislative approach to the Freedmen situation through the United States Congress. And I really believe that the same process of considering withdrawing funding to tribes that have disenrolled their people and disallow their people is a valid way of helping to solve the problem. And I think that California could do much of the same thing in regards to compact negotiations within the tribes for their gaming operations. And I just wanted to, you know, throw that out there. And plus, I also wanted to let people know about the Tongvaland project that's going on in Los Angeles, because there is a recognition going on for, you know, the original people of the Los Angeles area, where there are 7 billboards that are being posted over this next month for recognition of the original people and validation, and, you know, letting people know that the Tongva people are still there in Southern California. So I'm hoping everybody will be able to check that out. It's a really good project. And so that's all I have to share for now. Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate your comment. Any other folks want to share anything at this time? Okay. And I am going to go through. Let me see if I can make this much bigger. The draft principles for respectful meetings. And already today, I saw that there CIMCC reposted something from a Native wellness group that I thought had really interesting principles that are founded in Indigenous practices and traditions. And so I'm thinking about integrating some of those as well. But we'll go through these principles, and really the goal of this is, thank you for sharing the Tongva Land project. And so the goal of this is that, you know, a lot of folks are coming here and have specific trauma that they'd like to resolve, have specific instances from their histories, from their backgrounds that they would like to discuss in this space. And we want to make sure that this space remains a place where folks are respecting each other, where engagement feels positive and open without, you know, skimming over the fact that we're talking about really heavy things, but with the idea that people are coming into this space and it's a space of trust, of respect, of well-being, and where people aren't going to feel like they're not welcome, like they're not being respected, like they are subject to attack. So that's kind of the impetus for these meeting principles, and they're meant to apply to both these listening sessions, but also to regular meetings. And then as we move forward to the talking circles and the regular meetings of the council. So, and pretty much any space where this council is affiliated, we'd like to make sure that there is a space that is conducive to wellness and healing, so that people feel like they can be vulnerable in these spaces and not necessarily subject to attack or any sort of disrespect or personal animus. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and we'll walk through. Okay. Michael, can you see this? No, Loretta jumped.
Yeah, it's shown up and looks good.
Great. Okay, so the California Truth and Healing Council embraces transparency, inclusion, and respect for all experiences, viewpoints, and backgrounds, and encourages all available methods for public participation. The council supports public participation as a process to make better decisions that incorporate the interests and concerns of all communities and meet the needs and purpose of the council. Council members, staff, and many participants are members of the victim population in need of collective healing, so we ask that you engage with the council staff and each other with respect and with your whole heart in a healing mindset. Many of those doing this work are navigating systems that were not built for us, to make change that was never contemplated. This in itself takes an enormous amount of patience and emotional integrity, and we're all doing our best to make strides in these spaces. To honor the contributions of all participants to this critical work, we're continually working to improve the experience of those who choose to engage with the work of the council. To provide feedback about what is or isn't working, or to make suggestions, we encourage you to reach out to our team at info@catruthandhealing.com. The following principles are intended to guide your participation with the California Truth and Healing Council. In order to create a space where participants feel welcomed, respected, and able to speak comfortably, we'll uphold the following principles in all convenings of the council. We ask that all participants, which include council members, authorized representatives, staff, moderators, and the public, work towards sharing in their stewardship. If you're a participant in a convening with the council, we ask that you engage in the work of the council and with each other in an open and respectful way. Engage in behaviors that will make others feel welcome. Take care of your emotional, mental, spiritual, and physical well-being, and seek support as you need it. The council looks to all participants to be partners in helping to create a safe, inclusive, and respectful environment. All forms of discrimination, harassment, and bullying are prohibited in any council activity, including but not limited to listening sessions, subcommittee meetings, and events. During a presentation, if you experience or witness any unacceptable behavior, please notify council staff by emailing info@catruthandhealing.com. More information on expected conduct and meeting etiquette is available in the Council Code of Conduct, and that's something that the Council is going to go through this Friday. So first, engage in the space and with each other in an open and respectful way. Seek to understand and learn rather than to be right. Affirm the person and critique the ideas. Provide feedback constructively and with the intent for mutual growth and healing. Welcome feedback and challenges to your opinions. Avoid contributing to assumptions or generalizations about tribes, tribal communities, or other groups. Do not ask individuals to speak for their perceived group. Speak only for yourself. Offer participants the benefit of the doubt. Spirited discussions are expected on these topics. See this as a sign that folks are engaged and care, and remember to be respectful as you speak, read, and listen. Honor confidentiality. This is going to be most important when we have this talking and healing circles. Do not share others' experiences or information without permission. Assume that you have relative privileges and both explicit and implicit biases. Know that others may or may not have had similar opportunities, experiences, and background as you. Recognize that their contributions are equally valuable. For those from dominant identity groups, refrain from contributions that prioritize dominant experiences over those who have been marginalized. Engage in behaviors that will make others feel welcome. Make behavioral adjustments for virtual communication. If you wouldn't say something to someone's face, refrain from saying it virtually, either by voice or text. Know that use of strong language, capital letters, and exclamation marks can be easily misinterpreted online and unwelcome yelling or aggressive behavior. Remember that tone does not carry via text. People might not realize you're joking or being sarcastic. Leave space for others to engage and express comments and ideas if you have spoken recently by letting people finish their thoughts before adding new ones. And I think in this virtual space, understanding that people are over a year into a very stressful time, I think just understanding that everybody comes to this space having felt that and having not had the kind of benefits that in-person communication, in-person seeing family, friends, seeing people in person for tone, for the thoughts and feelings that people bring to an in-person communication and nonverbal communication that happens in person. All of that, just remember that everybody is trying their best right now, and that even if it feels like you're just sitting in your house and you can kind of act however you want, remember that, you know, we're all kind of in our own spaces and don't want to feel attacked in our own spaces as well. Take care of your well-being. Take steps to ensure your physical comfort. Some examples in virtual meetings include shift your sitting and standing position often, take a purposeful deep breath regularly, raise your eyes to look beyond the screen, and or sit back from the computer when possible to relieve eye strain. Keep a glass of water nearby and take sips throughout sessions. Please consider physically leaving the computer during breaks. Participate as you're able to and adjust your presence as needed, whether that will be turning off video or stepping away entirely. It is not expected that all participants will or should be present for the entirety of the council's work. We know and support that you will take time to eat, take care of your families and pets, but be aware that virtual convenings will be recorded and available to the public. Set up supportive resources such as food, water, ergonomics, and privacy while offloading responsibilities as possible in advance of convening. Plan for breaks and stick to them. And part of this in setting up supportive resources is we want to know what you need to feel supported in this work, either virtually or when you are attending in person, if that becomes possible in the future, because we can help with our philanthropic partners get those community resources out there. Seek support from your own networks or from provided resources as needed. And alert council staff to any concerns as soon as possible by emailing our email. And then finally, seek support as you need it. We recognize that participants bring their entire selves and histories with them to the council, and that topics explored during the course of this work may stimulate emotions and thoughts that would benefit from accompaniment and support. Although trauma responses can come from a variety of sources and contexts, the council understands that those who have experienced disparate treatment due to their Native identities may specifically want to seek assistance related to historical trauma and related issues discussed with the council. Council staff will be providing some supportive services for participants to be available for the duration of the council's work. So those are some of the contracts we're putting in place. I'm going to stop sharing, and it looks like we've got some chats in. See. Okay, folks had to jump. So if there's any thoughts at this time, feel free to jump in, or anything that didn't quite feel right, feel free to weigh in. And really, again, we want to just make sure that everybody is treating each other in a way that's conducive to collective healing. And if there's anything that folks have thoughts about, you can also email us as well. Otherwise, I do have some more questions given how things are kind of evolving. So maybe I'll go into those. Let me share my screen again, just so you have them, and then maybe we can put them in the chat as well. Okay, so we have a couple of questions given the sort of constraints on the council's work because of the pandemic and how it's evolving because of some of the open meeting laws. And so given that we're trying to get all of this other stuff done by the end of the year so that the council can do its regular work, again, pending any other constraints. Are there other subcommittees that should be created at this time to assist with building out the foundations for the council's work? And off the top of my head, I think all of the phases in the timeline can be associated with a subcommittee to staff them. So let me go back. So I would say that strategic planning, policies and procedures, and then even wellness could be a subcommittee. So just some thoughts on that. So community wellness, strategic planning. So maybe I'll pause there, or maybe I'll go through them, and then if people have thoughts, feel free to jump in. And then are there any additional resources the council should be building out? So policies, procedures, and processes that you think would be really helpful and valuable as the council moves forward. Is there a public speaking process even within the meetings that you'd like to see the council adopt? I know in some of the commissions that I work with, we have public speaking slips and things so that we know what people want to speak about ahead of time, or if people have public comments, they can submit it using a specific form. Are there resources you'd like to see on the website? Is the website useful? Are there things that you'd like to see that could be better? And then how should the council modify its work if public health conditions make it difficult to gather in person as we continue to move forward? Given that this council is within the executive order, it is a time constrained council. Should we be extending timelines, see what happens? Should it be exploring legislation? Are there ways to meet that you have experienced that have worked well? Is there a better way to be doing all of this work and the like? So that's just kind of, I'll leave those questions, I'll put them in the chat. And then if folks have thoughts, feel free to either put them in the chat or we can chat through them. Another thing that came up last meeting was the idea that there should be some evening listening sessions. And so, sorry, I'm trying to end my slideshow. We are willing to do that. And I think that we'll probably get those stood up starting next month. And we're looking at, I think, Wednesdays from 6 to 7:30. So we'll kind of adjust that and let folks know about that. And that's to accommodate anyone who can't make this time during the day. We want to make sure that we're creating more opportunities for folks to engage. And so, as I mentioned, after the September meeting, it's likely that the council won't be doing business meetings because they won't be able to meet virtually, and we're not going to be encouraging folks to meet in person. And so we'll continue listening sessions because those don't violate any sort of open meeting laws, and we will also continue the work of the subcommittees that also don't violate open meeting laws. So there will be plenty of opportunities for the public to engage in the work as it gets developed. So just a heads up on that, as we move forward, we will continue listening sessions, and we'll add another option for folks to participate in the evening. But a lot of the work will start shifting towards subcommittees so that we can get things done over the next couple of months as we plan for the bigger launch next year. So let me add those questions to the chat for folks to consider. And we welcome any feedback, any thoughts, or if anyone has anything that they wanted to chat about or ask about, feel free to unmute your line and weigh in. We've got about 15 minutes left. Any questions from this group? Any thoughts at this time? Any thoughts about how we can try to get out to the community in a better way, given that we're looking at additional constraints? So there will be notes, and we have notes from every week of listening sessions. So we'll make sure that those get posted hopefully by the end of this week and share those out for folks who were not able to attend the meeting, or you can also attend any of the other listening sessions this week. And it's basically the same thing for the next 3 days, but with different groups of people. And so great. So you can either attend, or we'll have a recording plus those readouts as well.
Haley, I'm sorry, I didn't know if you may have addressed this earlier, but is there going to be an actual California Native American Day in September that is going to be an on-site event in the Capitol, or is that going to be canceled due to the increase in COVID at the moment?
We have not yet addressed that. And so we're in the process. That committee is actually meeting right now. That's where Loretta went to join. But conditions are worsening, and so we are moving in the direction of likely making that a virtual event, but that announcement hasn't been made yet, and we still need to discuss that with the sponsor organization. So TBD on that, but we hope to make an announcement in the next week or so.
Okay, thank you. I also would like to make a recommendation at this time that the Truth and Healing Council consider consulting with people that can really emphasize the effect that disenrollment has had on Native communities. And I would recommend specifically David Wilkins, who has done much research on that, who is Lumbee, and also Gabe Galanda, who is from Round Valley, but currently practicing in Washington in regard to, you know, this situation and some things that could be done in order to bring truth and healing to the situation of our people that have been disenrolled. And I thank you again to this council for being here and hearing the concerns of all of our people throughout Indian country. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. Any other comments, questions at this time? Feedback?
I have a thought. I don't know. I can't see my video. I don't know if my video is working or not. But so, you know, a lot of the tribes in our area are really starting to get into the nitty gritty with the various museums that hold collections under Cal, you know, we're really looking at working under Cal NAGPRA for a lot of this work. And so I'm kind of getting questions from some of the different tribes I'm working with about how this council might fit into that process. And, you know, I know we have the Native American Heritage Commission, and we have bodies that are already dealing with that, and we have a lot on our plate with this council. It seems like this should be on the council's radar a little bit in some way, shape, or form. I don't know if there needs to be a subcommittee that specifically looks at that or not, but we really do want to be able to emphasize to these museums that this isn't just about what they're required to do, what they can get away with not doing, that there's a bigger picture here, that this is part of a healing process for tribes. Because in some of these conversations we're already having, I'm almost getting that impression from the museums. They're talking a lot about regulations and process. That's important, and I did point this out to them, but I also pointed out that the state's made a commitment to a healing process with tribes, and that should be part of the bigger picture they're thinking about when they're dealing with tribes. So I don't know exactly if I'm framing that right or what I'm trying to say. I'm just saying I'm getting kind of questions about that from some of the other people I'm working with. You know, how does this work fit into that work? So I just kind of wanted to put that on the radar a little bit here.
Yeah.
But I also understand we do have the Heritage Commission, you know?
Yeah, and I think though that there is a way to meld that and work with those structures in a way that doesn't exceed scope on either end. And so this council is really, you know, a truth-telling council and then also a recommendations council. So policymaking plus truth-telling. And so you can't tell the story of the state's impact on California Native people without talking about the fact that state institutions and private collectors have a significant amount of Native human remains and burial objects, and then also items of cultural patrimony. So I think that there's a way to have those constructs complement each other in a way that isn't stepping on any toes. So I think that's a great point to bring up and something that we should be more thoughtful about moving forward. And I think really it'll depend on how this council wants to frame it, whether it's looking at the legacy of state institutions, and looking at it from that perspective, or looking at, a legacy of collection and extraction of Native peoples and cultures that isn't unique to just state institutions, but is a state ethos that is what got us here and is like what the foundations of the state were with like gold mining and extractive practices. So anyway, I think it's something that the council can think about and figure out how they want to characterize and how you all want to look at that.
Yeah, I think something to think about too, and I pointed this out just in my conversations with some museum staff, there's this focus on the harm that was done through the original excavations of our ancestors, but I think there was a tremendous amount of harm done with the way they made these determinations of cultural affiliation to tell tribes, you're not affiliated with your ancestors, which so many museums did to avoid having to repatriate when they made those determinations originally, and made them largely without, tribal input. So that's just something I personally have been pointing out to some of the museum staff, because, they've kind of been a little apologetic about the original excavations. And it's like, well, that's not all folks are on the hook for here,
Yeah, and even the practice of curation and how they store items, and how Native people are brought into those spaces. It's all just kind of ongoing trauma.
Yeah.
But so I think the short answer is I think this council can help amplify and also help think about how, or also frame this conversation in a way that connects everything, rather than, there's a law that passed and we have to follow the law.
Would you mind muting my mic for me, Christina? My computer's
Sure.
being kind of screwy.
For some reason, I can't mute you.
Huh. Okay.
Just be very quiet. We're almost done, and you'll get last thoughts. I'm concerned with the very rural population. They have a lot of input and concerns, but service is not easily accessible. That's a great point, and something I may want to chat with you more about if you're able to reach out to our info.tribalaffairs email, because I think, I'm willing to come out, and then if there are local council members, so that we're not, kind of creating opportunities for movement and transmission, and where there's some ability to even just have folks gather in a way that's safe in rural areas, I think that we're willing to kind of get out there. So I think just thinking about what those opportunities are, or even sending those folks materials so that they can kind of bring that to the communities on their own terms without us going out there. If they're concerned about folks coming up or down or east, I think we can try to build out that as well, so that it's more of a community-based movement too. So if you have folks, I know you said Rise and others, but if there are folks that you can recommend that would be good spaces. I know some of the Indian health providers too, where like they're already trusted within the community and can help funnel feedback into the council. We'd love to create those relationships as well. Okay, we have about 3 minutes left. If folks have final thoughts, feel free to unmute your line or put anything in the chat. Otherwise, again, we're meeting tomorrow and Wednesday and Thursday. So if you have thoughts on some of the questions we had today, if you have thoughts on the respectful engagement document, and you have ideas about how you like to incorporate some of the concepts that you've used in your life or in your community. We'd love to hear those. And then again, we'll have our regular business meeting on Friday with the full council, where we hope to stand up a couple of subcommittees. So if there are more subcommittees that you think should be stood up to get some of this work done in the next couple of months, we are happy to consider those. So I'll turn it over to Councilmember Burris. If you have any final thoughts at this time.
Just stay safe out there with all the COVID and the fires. That's it.
Thank you, Councilmember. And again, thank you all for your time and for joining us. We know it's been really rough recently. So thanks again, and we will see you soon. Take care, everyone.